Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for making it today. I know it's been a tough couple of days in Dubai. Richard and I have actually been through a lot to be here as well, but we are so happy to be here and so happy to have you guys here. Welcome to the CTO Connect. This is done in collaboration between Gapstars and Nuwa Capital. I will let the panelists talk a little bit more about each of the companies, so I won't go into it now. So why are we having this event? As most of you know, Gapstars has just recently established, I'm also from Gapstars by the way. We just recently opened a hub here and we're establishing ourselves, and we've got an amazing collaboration going with Nuwa Capital. And we wanted to really meet the tech community in Dubai, and we want to make this a learning experience really. It's not just about the panelists here speaking about their expertise and their success in building startups and scale-ups, but we also want to learn from you, your experience in setting up in Dubai, and building successful companies as well. So please, ask questions as much as possible. You are welcome to raise your hand anytime and let us know what you're thinking, or if you have a question for the panelists, you're most welcome. Yeah, so let me introduce myself. My name is Peumalee, but you can call me Pew. I'm the head of delivery in Gapstars, and I come with about 15 years of experience in project and program management in the software industry. So I was asked to moderate this event, so thank you for having me, everyone. I'll start with introductions to panelists. We have Richard, who is a technician. He's actually thank you for that. He's actually one of our well-established clients at Gapstars. He's a technopreneur with 20 years of experience. He has done his own company. He built a SaaS platform, which he bootstrapped and exited, and now he's working for Alicia, where he's a CTO, and he's building a very unique concept, which is InsurTech for freelancers, and he'll talk more about it in the panel. And then we've got Nitin, who also has about 20 plus years of experience, and he's from Nuwa Capital. And he spent half of that experience leading companies in North America and the others in the investment space, which is why he's from Nuwa Capital, I guess. Yeah, and then Hugo, who is our CEO of Gapstars. He's a very young entrepreneur and successful as well, now leading a team of 250 people across Amsterdam, Portugal, Dubai, and Sri Lanka. So I want you guys to introduce yourselves as well as the companies that you work for. So Richard, why don't you take off and then pass it on to Hugo and Nitin.
Thank you, I'll do my best. So I'm Richard, CTO and co-founder of Alicia. Spent all my productive life in tech. And in 2008 until 2018, I built a niche SaaS platform for sports clubs in the Netherlands that became a market leader. It was completely bootstrapped, which makes sense in this case because it's a relatively small niche. And I worked with a local team, that was my core team. Worked with outsourced teams too, so offshored in Russia, Ukraine, India, Pakistan. So I have quite some learnings in working with different nationalities. And the approach was quite traditional. So the core was in the office back home, and the remote teams would work as an extended team, which is interesting. And also in my introduction briefing, I said I learned most by making thousands of mistakes during this journey. Exiting this company in 2018 gave me the opportunity to grow into a new one, which is the current company I'm building. That's Alicia. It's an InsurTech, building a platform for B2B, B2B2C insurance distribution. In the insurance world, you have a thing that's called embedded insurance, and that means that you distribute insurance products in existing online environments. which is, for example, if you buy a bike, you can buy the bike insurance with it. And we specialize in freelancers, insurance products for freelancers. We are a licensed broker, MGA, so we can create and brand our own insurance products. But you need the tech to deal with it, to distribute it. And having the experience I had with my previous company, my ambition was to build a local team again, but I ended up working with Gapstars, and I have no regrets so far. It's going pretty well. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, you go.
Perfect. Thank you.
I was waiting for the last part.
Yeah, it's the bridge.
Yeah, great to see everyone here, and I'm really happy that we still got a really good crowd together. It was a pretty stressful last 48 hours, as I assume for most of you. So I really want to thank everyone for being here. The people that made it shows real commitment. So super happy about that, and thank you so much, Nuwa Capital, also for hosting this event together with us. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm Hugo, co-founder of Gapstars. We founded Gapstars 8 years ago in 2015 in Sri Lanka, actually, where we started building software teams, software development teams for fast-growing SaaS companies, mostly from the Netherlands at the time. And our model, what we found basically was that it was really interesting to work with a different culture, people from all across the world, in a dedicated setup where they would really become an integral part of your company, rather than just being an outsourcing company far away where you would just give some tickets and hope that they would do a good job, right? So we really started focusing from day one on setting up a model where our clients are really working with them as their own colleagues. And I think if you look at Gapstars now, we have about 250 people worldwide, the biggest hub being still Sri Lanka. Of course, we also started Portugal recently. We have people in Amsterdam and now Dubai. Yeah, what we've really experienced is that we really see it as a community of companies, and I hope that Richard also feels that way a little bit. So we have this massive office in Sri Lanka, and there's about 45 active clients right now, and you can really see that a lot of our clients have their own spaces, their own areas, their own people. But the people that are working there feel 50% Gapstars, so they do feel a lot like they're part of our community, but at the same time they also have a very strong feeling in the sense of commitment and belonging to the companies that we work with. So I think that's so far been the key of our success, and yeah, personally really excited also to share a little bit more on the journey, and hopefully also be able to answer any questions in the audience on how this model works, or of course any other questions that come along. So nice to be here. Nitin, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Nitin. I think I know most of everyone here. I'm a partner at Nuwa Capital. I lead the value creation efforts. As Pew said, half of my experience has been on the operating side, so about 10 to 12 years on the operating side. I've built tech teams in a number of different countries within the GCC, UAE, and Kuwait. And in other markets, I've had ancillary teams in India, Egypt, and Turkey predominantly. I think my perspective will be a little bit different. I'm not a CTO. So I'll be able to offer a little bit more high-level insight from the operator perspective, but also from the venture perspective, as I've interacted with more than probably 100 companies.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's get on to the first topic. The first topic is about balancing quality versus cost and building scalable tech teams. I think balancing quality versus cost is something that all of us struggle with on a daily basis. I know as a project and program manager, I've had to struggle with that, especially with the trouble triangle with quality, cost, and schedule. But I think for a startup and a scale-up, that is especially important. And there are certain things that our panelists can talk about and maybe offer some advice that would make it easier. I will start with Richard on this one, especially because of your experience in building a team from scratch, Alicia. Can you share some insights on what you considered when you were building the Alicia team, and how you considered quality versus cost and balancing that and finding the sweet spot, and also how you built a scalable team in Alicia, and some metrics around that if you could.
That's a very big question, with a lot of sub-questions in it too, so please do help if I forget parts of your question. So in my previous company, I learned after a decade that I pretty much, most of those years, I was penny wise, pound foolish. So we went for cheap prices, so low prices. That's why we ended up in India, Pakistan, Russia, Ukraine. But I learned the hard way that it's more about cultural fit, it's about communication. So you will lose productivity. You can write off on like 80% of the work done if the cultural fit and the understanding of what you're doing is not there. So I also built a local team in my previous company that was, we focused on sports clubs. And the attitude that we had is if you know a guy in your hockey team or your tennis team and he looks for a job, just send him along and we will find him a job and learn him about programming or whatever. So we were like a training center. That's what you do if you have time and if you have the ambition to grow slowly, etc., etc. So with Alicia, it's the other way around. It's not bootstrapped; it's well funded, and you have to build on a strong qualitative layer. So that's why we started searching for people that really could see the core values of our company. So we started investing in what are the core values, what's the employee branding that we want to attract people on. And again, we tried to find a local team during the war on talent. And then you get 25 years old people that say, okay, I have 3 years of experience and my salary is 200,000 per year and I'm ready to give you 6 months of commitment because I'm not sure if this is the right job for me. So that was, for me, it was like a mind shift. It's the other way around. That's by definition not fitting the core values that we envision within Alicia. So long story short, we first tried to find teams in Croatia, that area, and the agencies between us and that area couldn't deliver anything. So that's also not according to our core values. And then with Gapstars, we found the opportunity to have a transparent process, to know upfront how everything worked, the costs, the selection procedure, the testing, etc., etc. And that gave us the opportunity to build a strong core team. So with core team, I mean you have a couple of disciplines that you implement in the team with people that really feel what the company does, and you will build a flexible layer, flexible capacity on those disciplines. So that's how we keep cost under control. That means that we are flexible in terms of growing in functionality, growing in revenues, and we also can downscale. But I think later on today, we will get into investing in growth versus investing in the profitability. So I won't give that away completely now, would I? Did I forget anything of your sub-questions?
Can you introduce your concept of the base layer in building scalable teams?
So yeah, it's my vision that you need that base layer. The base layer consists of, so we are not only a tech company, we are also an insurance company, so we need insurance professionals, tech professionals, and the base layer of the team is the people that represent all the disciplines that you need in the company, not per se for doing the job and executing all those disciplines within those people, but they have to be able to delegate to other team members. And the base layer is what you have if you would make the company completely back to basics. The base layer stands like a rock, and you do not remove persons from the base layer. So I strongly believe that you have to have representatives for the full disciplines that you need into your company with solid people, experienced people, and you do not have time you do not need time to explain to them what they need to do. If for example, a funding round goes well and you have the money to grow rapidly, everybody from the base layer team has to execute on their own vision and their own way, but driven by the core values of the company. And that's again how you scale up and how you scale down according to the conditions of the company in terms of funding, in terms of revenues, etc., etc.
Just another question on, what did you see when you were building teams on site, and then you were outsourcing, and then you were building teams remotely? What did you think about the quality when how did you manage the quality when it came to, you know, the two? Did you see a huge difference, or you know, was it not much of a difference and not an issue for you? Or if there was, how did you manage it?
Well, I saw clear differences between the areas, so in the world that we worked with. Differences in terms of meeting deadlines, fully understanding the specs, communication, making delivery promises and not keeping them, stuff like that. So I learned the hard way that the closer to home I went, the better it became. So we ended up in my previous company with a team in Poland, and that was a pretty strong relation. And that went pretty well because communication style is approximately the same. Way of working, they are direct, yeah. So and we are Dutch, and especially within Rotterdam, we are direct Dutch people. So I like direct, and the Polish were also quite direct, and that's what accelerated the growth of my previous company. But the structure was pretty traditional. So the in-house team was leading the external teams, regardless the project, the application, or the discipline. So the mindset of local being in charge and the remote being the followers, I moved completely away from. So in the current company, Alicia, we have one big team. So we have a couple of on-site team members. And we have people in Sri Lanka, and they are really functioning like one team. So we have a lead in Sri Lanka, followers on site, and vice versa. And we managed to set up a structure. Obviously, you need a lot of foundation for that. So you need to have your way of working completely in order, and you have to follow the way of working impeccably. If you let go on that, I think it will become a mess either way, regardless on-site or remote, regardless the nationalities of the people. But having those strong, basic game rules in place, we managed to have one hybrid team with no differences in terms of role or in terms of leading and following compared to on-site compared to remote. So that's how we do it now, and I think the most important ingredient is not only the way of working, having that in place very strongly, but also the cultural fit that we apparently have between us in the Netherlands and the Gapstars people in Sri Lanka. It's a good match.
Yeah, and I think with any setting, it takes some time to actually get to that, groove with working with the remote teams. But once you have that set and once you follow it consistently, I feel like, it's a winning solution. Thanks, Richard. Hugo, next question is for you. So Richard spoke from a client's perspective, from Gapstars' perspective. Can you maybe give us a few examples of where you have helped some of our clients scale their teams while keeping cost and quality under control?
Yeah. Sure. I think what we usually see within our client portfolio is a few types of companies that we work with. I was just discussing with Carbon Silver also about how that works. So on the one hand side, we have SaaS companies, VC backed, that right now need to don't have a lot of money all the time at least. So they need to do a lot with less, right? So they're really pushing for a certain roadmap, really trying to get their time to market optimized, and they're really looking for solutions right now in the market in order to make sure that their costs are rather low, but that their output is still high. And I think that's one of the reasons for companies to start a partnership with a company like Gapstars, where they can basically have part of their strategic, part of their strategic people close to the business, CTO, product owners, maybe some tech leads, closely connected to the product, and then a lot of the people that are actually going to do much of the groundwork can actually be located within a offshore or nearshore location. So I think that's one model where we see quality and cost go hand in hand, and where we have a very solid business case also that we can also help with, of course, to establish a win-win situation. The second model is what we now see more often also, and that's basically, I think, the transformation that we're going through as Gapstars, is that we also work with a lot of private equity-backed companies these days, which are usually much more in a merger and acquisition style business where they are basically looking for, let's say similar companies that they're buying, making sure that all these companies have somewhat of a certain type of DNA, a certain type of industry that they serve. For example, we see it a lot in government, vertical software, MSPs, where people are, companies are being acquired. And then also, the cost versus quality question comes in, because if you acquire a lot of companies, then you also usually see that there's a lot of synergies between those companies, and that you can, if you start, for example, a nearshore or outsource hub, that you can actually locate a lot of the resources that are that can be shared, right? They can be shared across companies, and they can be shared from the holding group towards individual companies that you acquire. So that's, I think, the second model that we now see a lot as well. I think those are the main two that I would like to talk about. Does that answer the question, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nitin, would you like to add something to that?
No, I'm good.
I would love some questions from you guys.
First question.
How do you price your product? How do you price your product?
My product.
Yeah,
Our product.
People.
People. Yeah, that's good. Well, that's a very direct question. Thanks for that. Straight to the core. Oh yeah, sorry. The question is, how do you price your product? Being a people, I think it sounds a bit weird, of course, to put it like that. But I think it's an interesting question that we've struggled with quite a lot actually since day one. And it's also, I think, if you look at the market, and obviously there are tons of companies out there that offer resources, that offer people per hour in different types of formats. And what we felt from the beginning, and that's also, I think, coming back to how I did the introduction also of Gapstars, is that we really believe that the model works the best if the team that you build abroad, offshore, nearshore, is really a part of your company. And that's also how we looked at our pricing, because we said, like, if that's really your team, if those people are really yours, even though they're not on your payroll because they're on ours, you want to know what they earn, right? So you really want to also understand the dynamics of their income, right? What is their take home? How does their tax system work, etc. So we're very transparent actually on that front, which still until today, as I said, is a struggle, because it's sometimes not the commercially smartest model, I would say. But it does get us very far in terms of transparency and trust with the partners that we work with. And so what it basically looks like in practice is, if you start a team, really simple, it's basically you have a one-off setup fee where you per hire basically. And then you have a running cost where you basically have a transparent overview of what is the salary that the actual developer is getting, and then the service fee on top. So that is, I think, you see it more often, but it's rather unique, I would say. I think in the market maybe 10% of the companies have this model, and 90% go for a more straightforward hourly based model. Another question? Does that answer the question, by the way? Yeah? Cool.
When you guys advise people to go for custom coding versus white labeling tech product and to make it like faster?
Yeah. Sorry, you
Like when you got,
I'll give you the microphone.
so when you guys advise people to opt for custom coding rather
Yeah.
than white labeling their tech?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a very good question. I think that also kind of feeds into the model that we have, because we don't really advise too much on that side, I would say. Obviously, we've seen a lot of product being built by the teams that we recruit and manage. But this is really a question that the CTO, I think, on the client side should be able to answer himself. I'm sure that you...
I could add something.
Okay, let's go, Nitin.
Yeah, since I haven't said anything yet.
About time.
Yeah, no, this is a question that I've seen companies ask themselves several times, dozens at least, and it's always a complex decision, which is the buy or build decision, buy versus build decision. Ultimately, it's a delicate balance in terms of what you want to buy versus what you want to build. Obviously, like, you don't want to spend unnecessary resources reinventing the wheel. And I think that's kind of the guiding principle behind making that decision. Coming back to Hugo's earlier points on profitability, you know, if I look at it from a macro view and we back up 3, maybe 5, even 7 years ago, money was abundant, not only in the region but in the world. VC-funded companies were flush with cash, and companies were prioritizing top-line growth over all else. So investment in their operations was required in order to do that, and profitability wasn't even like an important metric to really be considered until you got to maybe Series C or Series D in more developed markets, and in our market here at Series B. Now that's changed significantly, and that's a very difficult thing to navigate. So, we see companies right now going through very difficult periods because they pursue the top line growth. And whenever you want to make that change towards profitability at the corporate level, not just at the technology level, it's challenging, right? Like, so you start out with optimizing for unit economics, profitability, which is very difficult to achieve, but when you achieve it, you're like, okay, but I'm still burning a significant amount of money. And the next battle that you have to tackle there is optimizing fixed costs as a percentage of revenue, right? Because unit economics are 100% variable cost based. Fixed costs is predominantly for tech companies people. A big chunk of the fixed costs is tech headcount, right? Which is very significant. So, whenever you bring your question back to the profitability question, which is a strategic imperative now, you could see why you would choose to white label more products today than you would have 3 to 5 years ago, right? Just because it's more efficient to do so, and it's more of a manageable OpEx number, rather than investing in like fixed headcount that is difficult to reverse if necessary. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay,
Back to you.
Yeah. Any more questions? Oh, we've got one more. Do you need the mic or?
We'll see if my voice is loud enough.
Yeah. I can hear you.
Mic is on the way.
Two questions actually. Nitin, if I can come back to you from a VC perspective, right? So as a tech startup and as the CEO and CTO of the company, we went with the outsourced partner model. But we had pushback from some VCs that actually flat out said as part of their thesis, unless your team was completely in-house, they won't invest. Okay, where from a CTO's perspective and decades in tech, I know that that's a lot more leaner, cost-effective model because I don't need to retain the full-time FTEs for UI, QA, all these things.
Yep.
What's your perspective on that? Do you think was that a symptom of the flush capital years or not? And then a question for you after, if you don't mind.
Yeah, to be honest, I completely disagree with that perspective from other VCs, not to be contentious or anything like that, but I think that is a function of naivety. It's important to build an efficient company, and whether you're building that with in-house talent or not is irrelevant. If it's economically viable and the quality of the product doesn't suffer, it's a no-brainer of a decision to choose the most efficient path, pure and simple. The challenge comes when you have to ensure that the intellectual property that is developed is held in-house within the company. If you achieve that, then that's the most important thing whatsoever. So if you see VCs that are excluding you based on the fact that you're outsourcing technology, which I'm a little surprised to hear, to be honest, but more disappointed to hear, it's definitely nothing I would ever exclude or be like a strike against a company for at all.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Your second question, sorry.
Second question, just for Hugo.
So back on the pricing, we're not going to let you off the hook.
Okay.
So back on the pricing, so you said that your model
There's a discount code.
with the transparency on the salary of the resource plus your service fee.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd love to know what the percentage is. But
Yeah.
that's a different question. The actual question is, what happens with the annual increments?
Yeah.
Do you pass those on to your client, and who decides?
Good question.
Right? So does it, because you can start getting a 20%
Yeah.
increment, and now it's on my bill.
Yeah. No,
But then if I'm deciding that, then I'm reviewing this time. So what's the point?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that was an extreme nightmare, to be honest, to get around this, answering it in the first few years, because it is true, and for every country, for every geography, people want more money, right? Every year they come and they want something more, and we've seen that also in Sri Lanka, we've seen it in Portugal, we've seen it in the Netherlands. So it happens, and indeed it's something that we need to strike a balance basically between advising, right, and from our perspective, basically helping our clients get the best deal, right, on the one hand, And on the other hand, also looking at the dynamics within the country that we work in, and looking at like, hey, what is a fair percentage for people to get a raise every year? And that's what we did. So we basically have 2 systems every year where we look at the salary component, which is transparent, where we advise clients based on the local conditions, like, hey, we think it's fair to say that this developer with this experience going into 2024 needs an increment of 5%, for example. So this component of your pricing goes 5% up. And we think it's fair that because of inflation, because we have increased our services or improved our services, our service fee goes up with another X%, for example. So there's two variations that are being transparently discussed with the client, and the client can say something about the salary increment, because if they feel that that's not fair, right? So if they feel like, hey, this person might need a 10% or 20%, which is not usually what they say, but it can happen, or this person doesn't deserve any increment, then we usually stick to that. And that is because we feel that the client eventually decides their assessment of the performance, and we can advise, of course, what it means for the employment, right? We can advise if you do not give an increment, there might be a slight chance of this person, for example, leaving the team and the company in the next 6 months. Yeah.
Aren't you committed to provide a replacement at the same cost?
That's a really good question. That's not never asked before like that, to be honest.
Otherwise, I'm deciding income.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I would say that's a very interesting thought. I would like to talk a little bit more about that after the panel. Yeah, I mean, we do see, of course, that with some clients they are less strict because they maybe have more money or they just want to go faster and they don't care too much about that part, right? Because the business case is still very strong. If you compare the cost overall to, for example, the Netherlands. And other clients are very strict, and they do say, together with us, basically, this is the career framework, this is what we pay for a senior engineer at this point in time for this type of experience, and if the person wants to earn more, then there's no increment. If the person leaves, we replace him or her, right? So it is indeed true that happened. Thanks a lot.
Any more questions? Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, just to follow up on the previous question. So, since you're talking about replacements and managing that side, and everybody else in the room, I would agree that in-house or outsourced, retention is a big deal for tech resources, right? Especially the good ones. So, what is your strategy in terms of retaining good talent? I mean, of course, bonuses and perks are one, but is there anything else that you want to highlight, and how do you manage the knowledge transfer and ensuring that the projects and products don't get affected or impacted in the minimum way when that happens, because it ought to happen, right?
Yeah, good question. Very good question.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'll keep it short, and then I think Richard wants to add something. So I think it goes two ways. One is the integration from the team with the client, right? So we really, and that's actually partly Peumalee's job, is we really work together with the client to make sure that the people working on the ground, for example, in Sri Lanka, are really a part of the company. They feel part of it. They're part of all the ceremonies. They're part of all the sprints. They have access to all the right documentation and code bases and everything in order to be functional and to also feel like they're an actual part of the company's town halls, for example, company-wide meetings. They also visit often, for example, the offices from our clients in the Netherlands or anywhere else. For, let's say, annual summits or other sort of like big events that are happening as a real core part of the team. So that's one area where you really feel like if you connect them as much as you can, of course, the retention goes up, in my experience, in our experience. And the other part is a strong focus on personal growth. So we've developed the Gapstars Academy, where we have programs there called the Moonshot, based on our space team. And basically every 3 months we have someone from the academy reaching out to every individual within the company, asking him or her like, hey, what are your learning goals for this quarter? And we do the same on the client side. So making sure that the actual personal growth plan every quarter is aligned with what the client needs that person to focus on, but also what the person wants to focus on. But maybe Richard, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think so. So I had all the same questions as the audience. So I recognize that. So first of all, the transparency of knowing the salaries of the people is key for me. So you know what the range is that is reasonable for them, because Gapstars provides a very strong benchmark within certain ranges. And also the team members, they follow our way of working. So we decide how to document, we decide how they work within Jira or Confluence or whatever kind of tools. So we are really in charge of the foundation, the basic game rules. I think that's something you have to have under control 100% yourself, and to that you add the people, the talent. Also, the agreement that we have with Gapstars is that we monitor the performance. So we decide what's the job, what's the goals for this sprint, for next sprint. We decide do they perform well or do they underperform, and we do that exactly in the same way with our in-house people as in the people in Sri Lanka. On the other side, Gapstars deals with the social well-being, with team building activities, with educational needs, if they have any needs for that. And that takes a clear division of tasks, makes it also very clear who decides about what. So if we have conversations about salaries, we would be able to follow a conversation about how did you perform this year, or how are you planning to make this growth worth our while. So if you want to have a raise, how is your role going to grow and how's your responsibilities going to grow? And those conversations within our company are exactly the same with the in-house team as in the Sri Lankan team. And that's what I like. There's one set of rules that you follow for everyone. If that makes sense.
Does that answer your question?
Thanks. Any more questions from the audience? Okay, I think we can move on to the next topic. So the next topic is, going into the next topic, I think it's a universally known fact that 90% of startups fail, and out of that 10% fail in the first year. So I think that has a lot to do with prioritizing profitability. And I think, Nitin, in this case, you probably are the expert in this area to answer this question. Beyond the funding hype, how do companies prioritize their profitability to make sure that they scale and grow in a stable way? So can you focus on a few stories where startups didn't prioritize their profitability, and where there were pitfalls and where the audience can learn from them?
Yeah, I've touched on it, I guess, a little bit earlier today in terms of the importance of profitability, and that is kind of the priority of today in terms of survival. So why is that the case? Obviously, it's because the market has softened significantly, valuation has come down, raising equity is more expensive, so your dollar has to go a little bit further, right? So the pursuit of profitability is important for every type of startup. But the challenge varies with the type of startup that you are. So if you're a new e-commerce company, as an example, it's easier to build your technology team in a slow and steady way, because you could go to market with something very simple, because at the end of the day, what you're selling is not a technology, it's a t-shirt, let's say, or a pair of shoes, or whatever the case may be, a physical product. If you're a SaaS company, it's far more challenging, because what you're selling is actually the technology itself. You're selling a technology product, so the burden is to invest in the technology up front. So you have a lot of upfront technology expense that you're making a bet that it's going to return revenue within a certain period of time. And I see a few SaaS companies in the audience that could probably attest to that. It's a challenge, and it makes revenue a significant burden. Now there's two ways, mainly, to optimize for three ways to optimize for profitability. One is to focus on unit economics and do it with a lean team. The second, like I said before, is on fixed cost optimization. So that is productivity per headcount. So within fixed cost, like manpower fixed cost, you're going to have senior management, you're going to have your marketing team, you're going to have technology team. Technology generally is going to be the highest from a human being count perspective. So you really have to be careful to monitor the productivity per whatever metric that you're choosing to look at. Like for the case of a developer, that would be productivity per developer hour, right? which can be measured and can be quantified. Unfortunately, we are now in a period where we have seen a lot of companies that were pre-seed, seed level companies 3 to 4 years ago, and now they're approaching Series B companies. I think most of the companies here in the audience are a little bit younger, and now they're approaching Series B or Series C companies. So they went through that entire cycle. So there's a lot that we could learn from those companies that went through that entire cycle. These are companies that spent a tremendous amount of money, burnt a tremendous amount of money, and then over the last year and a half have had to go through very significant reorganizations, and in some cases pivots, right? So doing a pivot whenever you're a pre-seed or a seed company is comparatively easy, but doing a pivot whenever you're a Series B company is extremely hard and disruptive to the organization. So these companies, without naming any names, which I don't think would be appropriate, some of them have survived and some of them no longer exist, right? But in all cases, all of the companies went through a period of what I would say is unnecessary turbulence. So I think if there's just one parting message that I would have to the audience is, no matter what happens 3 years from now, like if the market comes back and the market is hot and frothy and multiples go up and valuations appreciate and there's money flowing in the streets like before, don't change your strategy, right? Like stay efficient because you never know what's going to happen. And regardless, whenever we get to the Series B level or the Series C level, we're not in the US, right? We're not in the UK or Western Europe or Germany. There's a deficiency of Series B level funders in the region. So no matter what, in our region, if you're a founder in our region and you're not profitable or very close to profitable by Series B, you're putting your company at risk. So in theory, this should be something that is much easier for everyone in the audience to understand versus if I was sitting in San Francisco having the same conversation, because they have an argument to say this is a momentary blip. For us, it's not. So the decision is clear, and I would just urge everyone to explore every avenue to not only have like unit economics profitability, but have control on fixed costs as well. My ex-CTO just walked into the room and he was notorious for burning tremendous amounts of money. I'm just kidding.
Are you setting the stage here for Series B funds from Nuwa Capital?
Yeah,
to dive into the gap?
Yes. But only efficient companies.
Only efficient companies. Nice.
Thanks. Richard, from your perspective, when you started building Alicia and you built the team from scratch, what did you consider when prioritizing profitability, and how did you manage that?
So the honest answer is we didn't consider profitability and we didn't manage that. We started the company in the best time ever. So the insurtech world was hyped 3 years ago. Funders poured in 6 billion plus per quarter in the insurtech niche. The last quarter of 2024 was less than $500 million. So it's decimated. It's interesting. We ran and we collected the second largest seed round in the Netherlands. I don't know if you know that, but it was the second largest seed round. Pretty proud of that, but obviously you burn that money quickly if you do not make sensible choices. So first of all, we went for a solid set of profitable products. So my job as a CTO is pretty relaxed because I work in the insurance world. The insurance world is very slow. So our tech is like light speeds ahead. But if an insurance product is created, if it's done, it is like an eternal, unlimited, scalable product that you can make money on. So we have a couple of those. The downside of an insurance product is you get claims. If you know insurance world, the insurance business, you know which products have a low claim ratio. And those are, for your information, general liability products. So we started with those products to not have our numbers messed up by large numbers of heavy claims. So that's one answer too. So we started with profitable products. On the other hand, we also started with rapid territorial growth. So our focus on geo was pretty early and pretty large for the age of the company. So with a not too strong foundation, we were already going for investing in territory. And that's the first thing that we stopped with when the funding climate changed. We actually ran for a Series A round. We've spoken to I think 60, 70 investors, and we noticed that the appetite of those investors moved ahead to Series B criteria instead of Series A. So they were really reluctant, really holding back. That made us aware that we had to change our strategy, and the previous topic was about the base layer. Obviously, the base layer had some sales reps for the countries around us, and those were the first people that we unfortunately had to say goodbye to when the funding climate apparently changed. So one of the answers on your question is we focused on healthy products. We did not ship any unhealthy products that would make a good name for us or make a larger market for us. We went for healthy, profitable products. That's one. And two is that we have the organization structure in such a way that we were clearly we always would know who to say goodbye to if we would need to get profitability within reach. So we had to say goodbye to a third of our team during Q4 23. And now we are building towards profitability, which is probably going to happen within 6 months. So you have to know what to do if certain funding climate conditions change. Also the other way around, like Nitin just said, in 3-4 years we could expect that the climate is way better. And then you also need to know which levers to pull and which buttons to press to facilitate that rapid growth again. So, and we do that building on that base layer team, the core team members.
Right, thanks. Any questions from the audience on this one? I think this is a very interesting topic for everybody, so there must be some questions. Okay, all right.
Are you getting them on the chat?
No, I don't have sleep. Okay. So okay, then let's just go on to the next question. I know it's Friday and it's almost 4 o'clock. So so the next topic is creative strategies for building remote tech teams, and I think Hugo, you're probably one of the experts to answer this question as someone who has worked with a lot of clients, scale-ups and startups alike. Can you give us a few examples of creative strategies that our clients have used and that you have consulted them on in building remote teams?
Sure. I think what I can speak to most of is my own experience, of course, in building teams in Sri Lanka and Portugal. And I think that, I mean, there's always, I think Nitin also has some things to say about this. It's always about countries, right? I mean, which country is better, which country is more interesting, or which people are smarter. I think that's very hard to say. I think this model can actually work in almost any market. It's really, I think, how you approach it, how you structure it, and how serious do you undertake the model. I think what we've seen, in my experience, what I really like about the 2 markets that we operate in is on the one hand side, obviously you have the big guys, Ukraine, well a little bit less now, but India, other big markets, where I mean these markets are massive. They have great pools of talent. You can definitely find a good partner there and do your thing. On the other hand, it's also very unpredictable because it's so massive and it's so hard to sort of like get your head around, like, hey, how does this market work? Am I really in the right place? Am I really working with the smartest people? And I think for us, one of the reasons why we are successful in Sri Lanka is because we are able to oversee that market. Right? It is not super small, but it's sizable, and for us that makes a really big difference. I think, for example, one of the examples that I can give is from day one we decided that we wanted to become the #1 place to work in the country. So in order to do that, we partnered with the Great Place to Work Institute, which I'm sure some of you people will know. So I think in the 2nd or 3rd year of operation, we already became one of the better places to work in the country. And 3, 4, 5 years later, we were already in the top 10. and also even getting into the top 100 of Asia. And I think that is easier. I would say it's still hard work, but it's easier to do that in a smaller market, and yeah, basically become a really talent magnet over there, and knowing exactly which technologies can you find where, what do other companies do in the market, etc. So for us, that's been a real advantage, and I think that the clients that we work with really profit from it. So I think that's what I have to say about that. But Nitin, I think you also have something.
Yeah, I could say just in my experience, it's always been important to optimize for cultural fit, but on top of cultural fit, ease of communication. So I always look at things in somewhat of a mathematical way, and I think, you know, it's always easiest to choose one country to start with that is as close to full stack as possible. If you're managing, like, because it's very easy to fall into the trap of Romania, as an example, has amazing UX, UI, whereas Poland might have amazing data engineers, and Portugal may have amazing AI engineers, or whatever the case may be, or AI architects. That's when you're adding variables to the execution equation, which don't necessarily need to be added. So I think simplicity is paramount, prioritizing countries that are inherently full stack, and there's many of them, makes things operationally a lot easier. I've seen it work where you're using a lot of different satellite countries, but you have more things to consider then. Because if you have your core or your base layer, let's say in Dubai, and then you have your engineering team, or a big chunk of your engineering team in Egypt, and then you want to build another team in Eastern Europe, you have to consider it. Is the general mentality of Eastern European countries conducive to the Egyptian culture, right? Not the corporate culture, the culture of the country. And the reality is, I've made that mistake, and it is not, right, at all conducive. Eastern Europeans with Egyptians is very challenging, right? Like, same can be said for Jordanians or most Middle Eastern countries. So why? Like, why go through that unnecessarily difficult complication? Why not keep it simple and look at countries like Turkey? I've had amazing success in Turkey. Countries like Sri Lanka, which is full stack. You know, Portugal is full stack. India is full stack, but comes with, you know, its own challenges. But yeah, I think that's the only thing I would add to that.
Nice.
Right.
Is the bar already open?
Yes.
Do we have more questions?
I can wrap up. Yeah, sure. I fully agree with Nitin. I have experience with 5 teams in different parts of the world. Recipe for disaster for sure, no matter how you define the work. So we looked for a one-place situation where the whole remote team would be able to enjoy each other's presence, and that's the strategy we follow now. And I learned a new word from Hugo a couple of minutes ago. It was like talent magnet. That's so you have to have a strong reputation somewhere to get that talent working for you. And one of the biggest advantages I have experienced with Gapstars is that if you need new talent, they would actually want to work for Gapstars. So if there's a position at Gapstars, people come to Gapstars because they want to work for Gapstars. And then they are, well, in our case, in luck that they even can work for Alicia within Gapstars. But the reputation of Gapstars is, I think, a major asset that we take profit from.
Thanks. I think we can wrap up. Do you guys have any questions at all? Or it doesn't have to be a question, but if you want to share any of your experiences. Yeah?
It's not a question, it's more of an experience that we have in my company. So we have a pretty creative strategy with our tech team, and I think honestly we're lucky with the synergies, because just like you said, Nitin, we have very good culture fit between us and the tech team, so that really helped us like develop the tech very efficiently. Now the solution that I just want to share with everyone, just like sharing knowledge, basically this tech provider that we're working with provides a CTO as a service, and our tech team, the full-time software developers, are based out of their offices. So slowly but surely we start even hiring managers in their offices, and eventually like when we in-house the CTO, then we offload that tech provider. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that strategy, which was super efficient for my company and really, really helped us build the tech in a crazy efficient way. So yeah, if you guys need referrals, let me know.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I think we can wrap up. Thank you so much to the panelists. I think it was really interesting getting 3 different perspectives on each of the topics. So thank you so much for that. And thank you all for coming and making it during this tough time. Hope you guys learned something. And thank you so much for participating and interacting with us. Grab a drink. And yeah, TGIF, right?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Music on. Hey, nice.